process, or are they processes to have a real outcome? To me, if something is just to have a process, then it's a total waste of time. That's one. Number two, and this I've never been able to get an answer for. The Anglophone population, do they have any kind of a hierarchy of leadership that could participate in some kind of a conference? Or is it a totally divided, grouping where you have different people speaking for themselves? In other words, it is much easier to have some kind of a genuine conference if you're sitting across from somebody who absolutely represents their side. Right now, I understand that the Cameroonian government can play all kinds of games by, having these conferences, and then the people they're talking to do they really have real power? Do they have representation? Do they have a constituency? We can talk about surveys, but who knows the correctness of the data that's behind the surveys? In other words,
So hold
to
there.
have a real.
So Tibor Nagy did the answer Chris Anu way they talk about the Switzerland. He gives two things. He say one, the Switzerland process or the Swiss mediation issue where they call and say Swiss cheese, most people they make a mockery of call and say Swiss cheese. Now just a process for B-Day as a process as a distraction. He call and say a waste of time. Number two, he talks say for that conference, the Cameroon government, he just one media conference day for people the way they talk with them. And those people that for those conference, those participants them, they don't get no hierarchy. Now the first thing that we talk, they don't get no hierarchy. Now a bunch of people the way some of them they talk now just for themselves, on themselves. I think people like Bo Herbert, people like Ebenezer Kwanga, at least Ebenezer Kwanga have some small force on the ground. But it's obvious that Tibor Nagy, people are telling them exactly what it is. You don't have, he also questioned about power. You don't have real power. The people who are there, they don't have real power on the ground because they don't have command and control of the population or of the soldiers on the ground. He will go ahead, I think, in the second speech to explain that. So the Swiss process is a something that Tibor Nagy is saying, is I quote Tibor Nagy, the government is using it, point it to the international community that you have a bunch of people there, they don't have real power, they don't have any rank. That means all of them, how can you be there? All of you say that you are equal. They don't have any rank, real rank. They lack real power. And that is the excuse. So Cameroon government is using the Swiss process as an excuse, according to Tibor Nagy. The participants in the conferences there have no real power, according to Tibor Nagy. Who can debate Tibor Nagy? He's saying this in front of Chris Anu. So, technician, continue. Let's listen to what Tibor Nagy is saying.
Summit, to have a real process that will lead to an outcome, you need to have participants who represent somebody. Now, as you well know, whenever there's an independence struggle, what usually happens, unfortunately, is that sooner or later the most violent group takes charge of the entire independence struggle. We've seen that over and over and over again.
Hold on there.
And is that what?
So, what's the way Tibor Nagy, he tell Ambazonians, he tell Chris Anu, say, since he left for office, none of those people, they never ever talk with you, basically. None of them never talk with you. And he tell them, say, during a liberation war like this, the most violent, he take over the struggle. According to the United States documents where they now released from outside, according to the World Bank, they consider the Ambazonian Governing Council, the ADF, as the radical side, as the hardliner. These are the people who have taken control of the struggle. It is now self-defense. The people that they call the radicals have taken over the real power on the ground, who have a command and control structure on the ground. It is the ADF, it is the Ambazonian Governing Council. It's not Sako, it's not Cristiano, all those people who are there. They don't have any real power. Look about their structure. Cristiano have called for tsunami, called for hurricane, nothing have happened. His brother, Olivier Leke, Fimasha, have ordered Saga have tell him shut off. He have ordered Grandpa Bali, Grandpa have tell him shut off. Today, Grandpa have made a video to tell them that he has separated himself, is now under Babila Tita. So who do they control? So they have no real control on the ground. They have no structure on the ground. They are a group of people who are representing basically themselves. Those groups have no hierarchy, which is exactly what we have said. Groups should have hierarchy in negotiation. Negotiation is led by a leader. You must agree to have one group or one person that will lead. Everybody should align under them. So that is how it's supposed to be. He's pointing to the ADF. Tibor Nagy is clearly giving a pointer to ADF. With all respect to Cristiano. He said that in all liberation movement, the radicals take over. The military wing takes over. And this is just a fact.
To put pressure, require pressure on Cameroon to get to the table. Don't you think that countries like the United States, the UK, Canada could do more to assist the Swiss get Cameroon to the negotiation table?
Yeah, again, I wish I could go into some of the private discussions that I had on this very...
Before we come for it, Tibor Nagy will respond for Cristiano. Don't you think it is really strange that somebody who is supposed to be fighting for independence is fighting for a Swiss process, is fighting to get validation about Swiss mediation? Is it not strange to anybody who will watch Cristiano? This is the third time he takes his time to force it on Tibor Nagy. But we know Americans are not easy nuts. Tibor Nagy will not say something to please anybody. So this is the third time. I have actually edited it. This is the third time where Cristiano is forcing the issue on Tibor Nagy's neck to give validation for the Swiss mediation. Why will a liberation movement be fighting for a process that have been called a waste of time, that there is no evidence that it can help us? Tibor Nagy himself is saying that Cameroon government is using this process to delay and buy time. Why will Cristiano and Sako be so obsessed about this mediation? This waste of time when there are alternatives. They were involved in the European Institute of Peace. So let's listen to what Tibor Nagy will respond to him again, the third time.
Could do more to assist the Swiss get Cameroon to the negotiation table.
Yeah, again, I wish I could go into some of the private discussions that I had on this very issue. The problem was, again, as long as there was a quote-unquote process going on, it's fairly easy for the international community to point to that and say, well, there's a process in place, so let's just see where that process, ends up. So as I mentioned before, unfortunately, it seems to me to be a process, to just have a process, and there's not going to be any sharp outcome.
So when I hear Tibor Nagy, he answer Cristiano for the third time. He tells Cristiano, this is a smoke screen by Paul Biya. He talked for Cristiano on air, say he, Tibor Nagy, have had private conversations. This is the former Undersecretary of State in charge of this affair for America. He's telling you, Cristiano, he's telling you and me, Ambazonia, that he has private conversations. So he's not saying it as a suggestion. He's informing us that he knows, he has discussed with the people involved, and this is his conclusion. It is a process for process sake. It is a smoke screen for Paul Biya to give the international community that are supporting him to point at it in order to ignore us. So, knowing what we know, anybody pushing for this waste of time this smoke screen is working for Paul Biya. He's helping Paul Biya to achieve the purpose for which this process was meant for. It is as simple as that. You cannot be fighting for something when the toppest United States former Undersecretary of State have informed you that he have had private conversation with the people who are involved. And it is being used as a smoke screen to give time to Mr. Paul Biya. So nobody should debate this issue again. He said that there is no outcome envisaged. That means the outcome is not even negative or positive. There is no outcome envisaged in this process. He says it is just a process. Ask yourself, why will Sako, even when the people who are there with him, like Bohebet, comes out and say Paul Biya is not committed, why will Sako be insisting that Paul Biya have committed? Why will he be speaking on behalf of Paul Biya? Why will he be defending Cameroon? Why will Chris Anu be struggling to use Tibor Nagy even when he is resisting to give validation for something that is helping Cameroon? It is not helping Ambazonia. Why? I will leave that question to you. Let us move ahead with a conclusion.
Yeah, again, I wish I could go into some of the private discussions that I had on this very issue. The problem was, again, as long as there was a quote unquote process going on, it's fairly easy for the international community to point to that and say, well, there's a process in place, so let's just see where that process, ends up. So as I mentioned before, unfortunately, it seems to me to be a process, to just have a process, and there's not going to be any sharp outcome.
So when I hear Tibor Nagy again, as the Ran repeat them, he talks with it. He wish if we go into a private conversation. Now, but there when I say there are private conversations that have certainty, which if we share on a bit more the same detail on the same thing. Say this is just a process. It has no outcome envisaged in it. It is just a process for process sake. It is a black screen. It's a smoke screen for Paul Biya to continue to kill people. Nobody should buy time for Paul Biya. So, ladies and gentlemen,